Hello, my name is Evans Mensah, and you can relive all the fun and excitement on Top Story, Newsnight, and of course, Ghana Connect via podcast. All you need to do is to log on to my Joy Online/podcast. Search for your favorite show and relive the moment. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Joy 99.7.
Right, so you're still on the AM show, and as I indicated on AM Talk, we'll be speaking with two MPs on the recent CDD survey and what Ghanaians have had to say about the expectations of the hung parliament. Most Ghanaians expect the current composition of parliament to impact on some parliamentary practices, functions, and government's business programs in the legislature. Is the legislature living up to expectation? Another expectation of Ghanaians, majority of Ghanaians, according to the CDD survey, they believe the election of an opposition NDC member as Speaker of Parliament will make the President and government more transparent and also promote MPP-NDC cooperation and collaboration. Now, joining us for the conversation, we have Roxing Nelson Afiamepo. He's the MP for South Dai. He's a member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, member of the Public Accounts Committee as well, and a member of the Standing Orders Committee. Also joining us is Collins Adomako-Mensah, MP Efija Kwabre North, and he's a member of the Member Finance Committee and a member of the Health Committee as well. Thank you to you both gentlemen for joining us for this conversation. And I'd want to find out, first of all, where you are and what's the rain situation in your part of the country. I'd want to start with you, Mr. Adomako-Mensah.
Good morning, Israel. Presently, I'm in Koforidua. We are here for the Finance Committee meeting, which is starting this morning. So I arrived here yesterday evening. This morning, it's rained here. There were some thunderstorms, and I just went out briefly. But it seems that the rains have gone down now. But I listened to you and your Metsu officer. I think I also will advise that everybody should be careful as we move out today, because the rains have started.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. And let's go to Nelson Dafiamepo. Good morning to you. Where are you? And what's the situation like where you are?
Thank you very much, Israel. Good morning to you. Good morning to your viewers. And good morning to my good people in South Dai, Peki, Bali, Kwevetombo. I am in Sunyani now.
All right.
With the Public Accounts Committee. It's been raining from about 4:30 a.m. and it's still raining.
Wow.
Initially, they came with some storm, but the storm has subsided, but the downpour is still ongoing. It's a very wet morning in Sunyani. In fact, since we arrived on Sunday from Tamale, it's been raining. So, like Colin said, my brother said, everybody should be careful, especially the interregional trackers, those who drive from one region to the other, who use the highways. They should be careful.
Yeah, certainly. Yes. All right, thank you very much. So let's get on with the conversation this morning. The main issue we're going to be talking about has to do with the CDD survey. What do you make of the findings? Some interesting findings came out and the expectations that people have of members of parliament. Before we get to the expectations, I want to find out just from you your first remarks about the survey itself. And I'll start with you, Nelson Dafiamepo.
Yes, it's interesting reading the report. And what's even more interesting is government's reaction to some outcomes of the report and how government is reacting violently to these findings.
Violently, you mean?
Yeah, it's violently. They are using all sorts of vile adjectives to describe the some aspects of the findings of the report. But we can expect that from the NPP when they don't find things favorable with them.
But it wouldn't have been any different. It wouldn't have been any different if it was the NDC that was in power.
Yes, we have always accepted CDD findings and use them to better our political strategy and approach. So that's the difference. We never discount or discredit their findings. We use it to better our strategy.
So let me hear some of the violent reactions that you thought came from government.
I think they've used words like concussion, WhatsApp, social media attackers, all sorts of adjectives. About 5, 6, 7 adjectives that my brother Benka Dinjok turned out yesterday. It's very interesting, my brother. Very, very interesting. But like you said, the report has made some interesting findings. Some are very revealing, but in a nutshell, it tells you how increasingly sophisticated Ghanaians have become, especially those within the vote bracket.
All right. So, Mr. Adomanko, how about you? What are your initial thoughts about the findings?
Well, Israel, let me say good morning to my brother, Dafiam Bepo.
Are you coming to react violently?
And typical of my brother Dafiam Bepo, he brings out very interesting stories. He says we are reacting violent, and then you push him to indicate the violent language that has been used. His answer is that WhatsApp and social media. I mean, please, let's discount what Mr. Dafembo is saying. We have not reacted violently to the report. For me personally, I've always taken surveys and reports in my stride. What is important is that you pick it. There'll be positive, there'll be negatives. Where there are negatives, what you do is to improve upon it. If you read the report very clearly, the period of the survey spanned between 23rd May to the 3rd of June. That's a very short period with a sample size of about 2,400. I'm sure other intellectuals will have their own arguments as to whether this particular size is enough to draw a broader conclusion. But for me, what is important is that you pick the positives, improve upon them, and the negatives you ensure, because this is not going to be the last report or survey that CDD is going to have. Pick the negatives, ensure that the next Afrobarometer report, you are going to have a positive outcome. That for me is what is important. So for me, and as government, we take it in good stride. Of course, no matter what others will disagree with some aspect of it, what is important is that you accept it, you work upon the negatives, and then improve upon the positive that have come.
Okay, so let's go into the report itself. So most Ghanaians, according to the report, they expect the current composition of parliament to impact on some parliamentary practices and functions and government's business and programs. What do you make of that? Is it a fair expectation? And
do I come in?
Yeah, any of you can take it. Yeah, Collins, you can go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I mean, when the numbers came out and virtually the same number, everybody thought that was a beautiful opportunity for Parliament to exert its parliamentary oversight role. And I'm sure our friends in the NDC, and of course, on our parts, I think we are doing that. And I'm not surprised about that particular outcome. The Speaker, of course, I've not always sided with him on some of the decisions that he's made. But by and large, I think he's been a fair arbiter during the whole process up till now. Since we went on recess, I've read some few comments that he has made out of Parliament that I thought was a little bit strange. But by and large, I think he's been able to control affairs within the House. And our brothers from the NDC have also done quite a good job in ensuring that government is always put on its strict proof, scrutiny. And as I said, we're also doing our part. I think the assertion by the survey or the reports is something that I share.
All right. Mr. Dafiameko, so how about you? Would you say that as the expectations that we have, the current composition of Parliament should impact on some parliamentary practices and functions? Would you say you have lived up to expectation?
Yes, I think I find this particular question by CDD nebulous in the sense that compositions of Parliament have always impacted on its work. So I was hoping they would have put the question in the converse as to whether or not the current composition will adversely or positively impact the work of Parliament. But I can gather that from the questionnaire that they put out, they were trying to find out from the respondents whether the current hung Parliament as it is, or the nearly equal share of numbers in Parliament who adversely affect the work of Parliament.
I'd want to believe, Mr. Dafiamako, that it's more about, because we're having essentially equal numbers, it will be the bills and the government policies will be subjected to, better scrutiny. So they'll be a lot tighter than usual.
So I expected them for that to come out in the questionnaire. Then in eliciting answers from the respondents, you would have elicited a more responsive answer. Indeed, bills have always been properly scrutinized, even when we had lower numbers in the 7th Parliament. It is the processes that we take those through to passing them into law. It's a technical process. There's nothing you can do about that. When a particular phrase in a bill is wrong, and the House thinks that this cannot be allowed to pass into a law, it is amended. We delete it. We add. We tidy up bills all the time. And in the 7th Parliament, even though we had lower numbers, we had 106 against 169, that Parliament passed more bills than any other Parliament in the history of this country. I'm in the 8th Parliament. But I don't think the rate at which we are moving will be able to outpace the number of bills the 7th Parliament passed. That's the first point. Now, as regards motions and private members' bills, I think it has taken off quickly in this Parliament. So far, over 55 private members' bills and motions have been filed. Some have been passed, but a lot of them are on the order paper, yet to be taken. So, on that note, I think that the equal numbers now has engendered a more cooperative attitude from the majority side. They are more willing to listen to us now than before because we have nearly equal numbers.
All right,
and they are also willing to meet us halfway, unlike before, in terms of negotiation. And so these are some of the few things I can say regarding the present ratio of membership in the House.
There are those who will look at some of the incidents or some of the things that have happened in Parliament and wonder, have you really been able to hold or stand your ground? And they talk about the approval of the president's ministers, for instance. It got to a point where there were people who thought, or there were some members on your side who actually felt that some of your members had actually let the side down and that they would have wanted better scrutiny and to hold on to some of the approvals. So these things come up and people are wondering, are you really
and
achieving?
I want to address that today.
All right.
You see, better scrutiny of the president's nominee does not necessarily result in disapproval. And let me give you an example. Now, we scrutinize Ajumamenu during his birthday. We asked him issues concerning his role in a lot of the things that happened under his ministry during the first term of the president. We passed him as a house. Today, Ajumamenu has run himself into problems. If we had rejected Ajumamenu, I don't think the kind of things, the problems that he's had as a government appointee would have witnessed it if he were not Minister of Health. So it is good that if you send me a material for me to scrutinize for purposes of approval for the person to function in a certain portfolio, I should be able to point out the weaknesses of the nominee. So it is up to you, the appointer, to make a decision as to whether you go ahead to still confirm the person or you replace the person because of the weaknesses or the problems we have pointed out. If you go ahead to confirm him, and the person in the course of the performance of his function, it creates problems for the government, then you, the appointer, must bear the consequences. Now,
but there are those who say that if you found fault or you have issues with the appointee and you had rejected that appointee wouldn't have created the problem.
I was about to address the issue of rejection. In Parliament, in our law, in our standing order, there's no provision. There's no basis apart from the constitutional requirement, which makes a person who is fit to be appointed as a minister to be also eligible to be elected as a member of Parliament. Apart from that constitutional requirement, the only other basis that you can reject a candidate is when there is clear evidence that the person is not a Ghanaian or the person has committed some crime, is being convicted, and 10 years post-conviction has not elapsed. Apart from those grounds, you have no other basis to reject the president's nominee. But you can gather evidence to show, to establish that the person has engaged in a lot of illicit activities. Do you appreciate my point? So if the appointer insists that even though you have exposed these flaws against my candidate or my nominee, I will still go ahead and appoint him, that is up to him. The numbers in Parliament are such that if we vote 137 against a particular nominee, it would not result in a rejection at all. Because in order to pass the person, you need simple majority. So a vote of one will carry him or her through.
So for you, you're saying that once you pointed out the issues with the appointee, you expected the president or the president who appointed the person to either withdraw that person. Let me put that question to Mr. Adoma-Mensah. So the minority is saying essentially they saw the red flags and they were expecting the majority to cooperate with them and say, maybe let's withdraw this candidate or this appointee.
Well, I think it's important that we make this point very clear. About 80 to 90% of the work we do in Parliament, and my honorable brother will tell you, is mostly by consensus. The fact that you scrutinize, what you do by scrutinizing is to perfect the document. So during committee meetings, issues are raised. If there are some corrections that has to be done, they are done before it comes to the plenary. So most of the times, most of the issues that are discussed, you realize that about 80 to 90% are based on consensus. And then we come to the plenary to argue out and then fine-tune some few things. On the issue of ministers and their rejection, and as he put it, and he's right. I mean, committees don't even have the capacity by our standing orders to disqualify a particular candidate. All they do is to interview and bring the report to the plenary. Then we have a debate about.
Right, we seem to have had an issue with Mr. Adoma-Mensah's connection, but he should be back in a bit. Are you? Yeah, I believe he's back. So please make your point.
Yes. So the point is that most of the things we do are by consensus. I mean, on the issue about the ministers, right after the vets and reports is brought to Parliament, and we have a discussion and debate about it. And as you rightly put, just a single vote can put someone through. I understand and he, the FMFO, is aware. I mean, there was a political pressure from their end. And some of the MPs, when you speak to them as brothers one-on-one on the floor, they will tell you, oh, we don't have any problem with this person. But there's pressure coming from somewhere. You know, the party issued the statement pushing for rejection of certain candidates, certain nominees of the president, on the basis of some of the utterances that these nominees have made towards the party as NDC party, not necessarily because of the capacity of the person. So he's right by saying that they don't have the right to reject, or as a committee to reject any nominee. I believe very strongly that almost all of the nominees that the president brought to Parliament, we all watched their vetting. I mean, look at Onamukudo Ponkroma, that there was a whole debate about whether he should be rejected or not. How do you reject Kudo Ponkroma? So some of them, clearly, they were political decisions that some members of Parliament from their end had to take. But by and large, most of the things we do in Parliament, 80 to 90% of it are by consensus.
Let's take the performance of the Speaker.
Can I add this before we take the next point?
All right.
Okay, I think it's also important that whatever we do in Parliament is anchored in law. Now, by the constitutional provision, there's no provision that says that if a nominee by the president for purposes of vetting and appointment by Parliament is rejected, the president cannot, for instance, repeat that nominee. If we have an unscrupulous president and a very intransigent one, the president can keep repeating a rejected nominee until you give up. The entity rejecting, you give up. Then again, if we check our standing orders in Parliament, which is also a creature of statute, there's no provision that says that committee you can reject a candidate that you have vetted. What you can do is that those who disagree or who vote against the approval of such a nominee will have to bring a minority opinion. The final decision lies with the House. And in taking decisions after deliberations in the House, it's by resolutions. And the resolutions in a lot of the instances, including the resolution to pass reports confirming president's nominees to ministerial or other constitutional offices, it's by simple majority.
All right. Let's look at the performance of the Speaker. So the expectation, a majority of Ghanaians believe the Speaker, the election of an opposition NDC member as Speaker of Parliament will make the President and government more transparent and also promote NPP-NDC cooperation and collaboration. I'd want to start with you, Mr. Domako Mensah, on this. What do you make of the performance of the Speaker as far as the expectations of a majority of Ghanaians are concerned?
Well, the Speaker, we all know, is a very experienced
legislator himself.
Legislator. I mean, from 92 till now, I mean, half of his entire life has been with parliamentary practice. And so when he's in the seat, and sometimes I listen to him during his decision-making time, or when he has to make it, the way he even refers to the standing orders and the Constitution. He's a lawyer himself. And so it comes quite natural with him. So far, on a scale of 10, personally, I think I'll give him 7 out of 10.
All right.
And as I said,
that's impressive.
Yes, he has demonstrated some true leadership. Of course, I must say that recently he's been making some statements that I totally disagree with him. And I believe very strongly that where he is now, he has reached a certain level of neutrality that he should try as much as possible to exhibit that, even when he's out of Parliament. Of course, he makes it very clear all the time he's speaking. And I remember when he was giving his thank you speech when he won the election, he did give credit to the NDC and this state that, yes, he's a member of the NDC. And there's no doubt about that. But I believe very strongly that as much as possible, he should try to take away that aspect of NDC and look at things from a different perspective. For me, when he's in the seat, some say he's quite authoritarian. Sometimes some of his judgment and the way he looks at you, when you are caught talking, and then the way he looks at you, sometimes it's a little bit problematic. But by and large, some of his rulings, most of the times, is grounded on fact and law. And I'm told that I mean, this was just a meeting I was having with some of the senior members of parliament. You hardly hear a speaker giving a speech. No, by this time, when it comes, the speaker's speech will give you a very, very detailed speech. And sometimes it comes back with judgment. It will tell you that the decision I made, the next day I'm going to come with details as to what culminated into my decision. And he backs it with law. And that's quite interesting. I've read some of his decisions and the trajectory that he normally goes through before he gets to that decision. So by and large, I think I'll give him 7 out of 10. But as I said, I think some of the utterances that he's made out of the House is a little bit problematic, saying that he doesn't believe that we have a majority in Parliament, saying that John Boyd said some few things to him here and there. Those are quite, I think he should leave that to Daffy Amekbo and co to say. And then he should just concentrate on being an arbiter. But I think by and large...
You had to throw a jab at Nelson Daffy Amekbo. It's Daffy Amekbo, how would you rate the speaker? You're going to give him 100%?
I will give the speaker 9 over 10.
All right.
The speaker has indeed come under severe attack from his own party, including some of us. We think that the speaker is rather panning to the side of government.
Oh, really?
Yes. You can gauge from among the general membership of the NDC after this program, and they will tell you that the expectation of the NDC members upon his election is being diminished or is being dashed by the way he's conducting affairs in the House. Because as part of his key pronouncement during his inaugural speech is that he may be an NDC member. Thank God for that. He's a long-standing founding member of the NDC. But having been elected as Speaker, he is now Speaker for the Republic of Ghana.
Which is true, and it's fair.
Of course. And so that statement shocked a lot of the NDC persons who thought that he would be very partisan.
Oh. Why would you expect that he would be partisan?
No, you know party people. I mean, we are politicians. Let's be very frank. So a lot of people thought that he would be very partisan. He will pan to a lot of NDC's cravings in Parliament. But no. So from day one, he dashed the hope of the generality of the members. And then some of us believe that he will be fair. Then on the floor, sometimes when the issues crop up, and you think that the majority are so uncompromising, very clear issues that we must have discussed, like said, for purposes of consensus voting. We come to the floor and they say no. Our leadership wants to raise the matter, and the speaker says, "Minority leader, I have made my decision known to you on the matter. Let's make progress." You understand my point? So, yes, but I can say that under his leadership, a lot of the investigations or motions to investigate some matters have been approved. I think, but for him, we wouldn't have seen some of these things. For instance, we wouldn't have had the committee to look into the Sputnik V issue.
Okay.
Other motions are pending. For instance, to look into why military men stormed the parliamentary chamber on the night of 6th January, daybreak 7th January. And I think that he's also brought a new approach to, well, Okoye started, but now some of his seminal rulings are delivered, backed by law, like my brother Colin said. And it helps to build the parliamentary democracy, because over time, we should be able to build the jurisprudence around the work and procedure and practices of Parliament. And his rulings that he's periodically delivering on some of the topical orders in our standing orders. So some issues. For instance, if a motion is moved and seconded, and debates are engendered, can you defer the taking of the final decision, like the speaker did the last time before we vote? Those are jurisprudential matters.
Well, so that wasn't Abang Bagbing as speaker.
Right?
That wasn't Abang Bagbing as speaker, was it?
You see, that's the mistake. The speakership is the speakership. We are evaluating the work of the speakership. Abang Bagbing may symbolize the speakership, but there are three of them. So we are evaluating that office, the office of the speaker.
But what could he have done? So, as we speak right now, we're just looking at Abang Bagbing because that's what the people were expecting, that we're having an NDC legislator being in the position of speaker. So that's a role that we're evaluating, and that's what people are speaking to. So what could Abang Bagbing have done if there was somebody else sitting in the chair?
He would have gone ahead and taken that decision that they were taking the vote. That's what, in my opinion, Bagbing would have done.
Yeah, but he wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
Yeah.
But Israel, it's well in the right of the speaker to defer a vote.
Hello? But if the vote is deferred, which is what Nelson Dafiamekpo is talking about, you can defer it in a way that can impact or water down. So by the time eventually you're wanting to discuss it, especially when you're just about breaking.
The point I'm making is that
Israel is very important because it means as we speak, Parliament still hasn't taken a decision on the Sputnik V report before it. That's what it means. So it means that government will have to exercise restraint in looking at the recommendations contained in that report. That's
when we resume, we will take that decision.
Yes, Mr. Collins Aduma.
I mean, it's well in the right of the speaker to defer a vote. Mr. Dafemebo knows about it. Well, you can talk about the timing, but I'm sure when we resume, this matter will come back. So my brother should relax. Everything will be fine.
Okay, but let's also look at Abang Bagbing and the way he has helped assert Parliament. There were a number of occasions where you could tell that he stood up to the executive, which really is what many people were expecting. It's very much in line with the expectations of the people that if we're having a speaker like that. One of the instances has to do with when there was an attempt to slash the budget of Parliament, the legislature, as well as the judiciary. I'm sure both of you will recall.
Exactly. And it was a very bold decision by the speaker to do that because it's never happened. And indeed, when he remitted the letter back to the office of the presidency, they agreed with him. The letter from the president to him indicated that he agreed with the position that he took. And he thinks that going forward, this is how things ought to be done. And he also added, not just the legislature, but the budget for the judiciary.
Yeah.
Constitutionally, you ought not to tinker with the budget of the judiciary. So even if they bring a budget for 1 billion for purposes of their activities for 2021, you ought not to tinker with it. You only have to submit it to Parliament for us to look at it and approve. But consistently, every government has tinkered with the budget of the judiciary. An unconstitutional conduct that we have all allowed to fester.
Collins, you would agree that the Speaker in that instance or in those instances actually helped assert Parliament?
Well, of course. And as I said, his experience in Parliament it's an advantage to him. And he's a lawyer, so he knows the law and he knows the standing orders very well. So he's able to quote the relevant portions of both the Constitution and the standing orders to make his point. And at the time he was giving this particular ruling, I think it was right. The government, later the executive, agreed with him. But Mr. Dafiamepo's point that over the years there's been some unconstitutionality with regards to slashing of budgets. I mean, I don't think the judiciary can just come up and say we want 30 billion when they know that the total resources of Ghana is maybe 40 billion. So they also have to be objective in their request. I think that is where sometimes there seems to be some disagreement. Of course, we cannot dictate you what you do, but you also have to understand that the national cake has to be shared in a certain proportion. And so Parliament then cannot say, because we are an independent arm of this government, just say that we need 40 billion, when you know that the total revenue of this country is about 70 billion, because other things has to be done from the same resources. So yes, and as much as we are independent, I believe also that our request should be rational, so that it makes sense to everybody.
Israel, Collins is missing the point. He knows that, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
For every budget that is prepared and submitted to Parliament, there's what we call pre-budget hearing. Every agency is involved. The judiciary is involved. The figures are agreed. And so if we allow the judiciary to submit their budget, and after it is submitted to the president pursuant to the constitutional requirement, and you slash it at the presidency before you forward same to Parliament for approval, that is where the problem lies. So you can always agree that before the estimates are submitted in accordance with the constitutional provisions to the office of the president, these are the figures we can work with. You know, I cited the 1 billion for purposes of
I agree with you perfectly.
Not out of context.
Yes, I agree with you perfectly. The point I was making is that...
So these are the issues. And sometimes, even when it is flashed and sent to Parliament, and Parliament approves whatever the presidency submits, they still are unable to give them full releases.
Yeah.
So at the end of the budget performance year, even though Parliament has approved, let's say, 500 million for the work of the judiciary, at the end of that financial year, they end up getting only 350 million. So their situation is even worsened further. And these are the things that Speaker is out to check. And one thing the Speaker also does is to constantly put his members in check. The MP is always disciplining us. He's always cautioning us that we symbolize Parliament. We are Parliament agents. We are the ambassadors of the legislature. So our conduct ought to reflect the etiquette and ethos of Parliament. So he does not condone wrongdoing on the part of any MP. No. He will discipline you, even if it's in camera. He will deal with you. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. So going forward, can we expect that Parliament will continue to live up to the expectations of Ghanaians as contained in the CDD survey, that, yes, you would continue to stand up to the executive?
Well, I can say yes. We want to give the Republic of Ghana that assurance. And I can assure you that the minority 137, it's our duty. Collins and Co. will come under executive script that they must always support government policy. But it will be our duty, even though we want to support government policy, it will be our duty to scrutinize all these programs and ensure that we get value for money for this. For instance, Agenda 111, we've supported the policy. But it's the duty of us, the minority, to ensure that we get value for money. We are not shorting. If we say we are building a $60 million hospital, we get value for such a project. We don't give design out for $6 million when the design is already existing. So we will scrutinize them.
All right.
But we will help them support government programs so the Republic of Ghana can blossom.
Collins.
Well, you always should expect the Fiamebo to hit some jabs as he exits. But on my part, I can pledge my full readiness to assist this government and Parliament as a whole to ensure that the next survey might even be more better in terms of improvement. And let me make this point. My friend said that Collins and Co will be quick to support the executive. At the committee level, Israel, you should be there, and he knows it. I mean, sometimes documents come from the executive, and at the committee level, even members on the MPP side, we have cause to question some of the figures or some of the details in the document coming from the executive. So it is not like, as members from the same government or the same party, all we do is to rubber stamp.
No, that's why I said you may come down.
We do that at the committee level. In fact, most of the documents that come to the plenary, he knows sometimes a lot of the things have changed. The document that comes from the executive, by the time we get to the plenary, a lot of things have changed, and members from our side contribute to those changes. We don't just approve as it is. So yes, as I said, I pledge my unflinching support to Parliament, the executive, to ensure that we continue to put the government in check and to ensure that we build our democracy, legislature improves. I'm very sure that the next Afrobarometer report will be very, very favorable to Parliament.
All right. One other thing that could happen before you go, one other thing that could happen by the time you return from the break could be that the numbers could change because we have a number of issues outstanding in court.
In our favor. In our favor.
It could also go against you.
So far, it seems all that is happening is tilting to our favor.
It's tilting towards a majority. It's tilting towards the MPP, I should say.
Of course, absolutely. Up to the MPP.
Roxy.
Already have one passing issue. It's
Israel.
Yes, Roxy.
Let me assure Collins that the judicial process doesn't end with the determination of the High Court. There are appellate processes available to us.
All right.
And we have triggered those appellate processes. Is that we are willing to pursue this matter all the way to the Supreme Court and even for a review. So they should relax. It is early days yet. It's a long haul.
You mean it's not over yet?
No, it's a long haul.
All right, thank you to both for joining us for this conversation. Roxy Nelson, Dafema MP Sadai, and Collins Adoma Komensa, and wish you all the best in the roles that you're playing in Koforidua and in Sunyani. All right.
It's a pleasure talking.
All right. So thank you very much, and you're still here on the AM show.